Okay, Hardcore Justice 2012. A lot of the build-up was focused more on the Aces and Eights storyline than the actual pay-per-view itself, but that doesn't mean they couldn't have a good show. Let's find out how they did. We started with Gunner and Kid Kash versus Chavo, Guerrero, and Hernandez. I appreciated that they didn't put the X Division match in the curtain jerker spot, and this was a pretty decent opener, I thought. You know, they didn't blow the roof off or anything, and it got kind of dull in the middle when the heels were isolating Chavo for a while, but it was alright. Then the finish with the mid-air tag was pretty cool. You know, both these duos should be serviceable as tag teams as long as Chavo does most of the work for the faces and Hernandez doesn't get too many opportunities to injure people. As an opener, this was perfectly fine. Falls count anywhere. Bob Van Dam versus Ken Anderson versus Magnus. This match felt a little too short, but I liked it. If nothing else than for the entertainment value of seeing Van Dam constantly trying to do his tired old Bob Van Dam thing, and the other guys nailing him from behind every single time he did it. Made Van Dam look like such an ass. And there were a couple nice spots here. They did some interesting things around the stage, like Van Dam jumping off it and the submission on the ramp. Of course, this was supposed to be a four-way, but the Pope got taken out by the Aces and Eights, which was unfortunate because that meant Magnus ended up beating the pin. And that leads me to my major complaint with this match. Why did Magnus have to eat the pin? If he was going to lose here, why did he get jobbed out to Van Dam on Impact 2? I'm sorry, but that's just terrible. Unless something major changes, Van Dam is probably not winning the Bound for Glory series, and he really gets nothing out of being in the top 4, whereas Magnus would get a big rub from being in that spot. We know neither guy is winning the tournament most likely, so why not just let Magnus get the win here? I mean, come on, man, it's 2012. What is the point of protecting Van Dam so much at this point? Liked the match, hated the finish. Then we had an impromptu TV title match with Devon versus Kazarian. The match was pretty decent, it just didn't really mean anything, which is kind of representative of Devon's entire title reign, I'm sorry to say. I was on board with it for a while, but it really hasn't gone anywhere, it's lasted too long, and it just feels like he's a placeholder for the next champion that the writers never seem to get around to selecting. I really don't have much to say about this one. It was a good match, but so what? Knockouts title match, Ms. Tessmacher versus Madison Rayne. Why did management not get a different referee? Why did Brooke Hogan not get a different referee? Why did Tessmacher not request a different referee? This is so stupid. It's a bad sign when the video package of a referee acting like a pimp is more entertaining than the match it's promoting. Fucking Madison Rayne. God damn it. For fuck's sake, there were so many reasons not to do this, and not a single reason to do it. Madison Rayne was a horrible champion. You booked her as the champion for a fucking year and she never got over. And she's not over now either. Did you notice how the crowd completely died when she was on the offense? What does that tell you? What a terrible decision. You have Tessmacher dethrone the longest reigning Knockouts champion in history, only to lose the belt just 2 months later in her first pay-per-view title defense to the worst woman in the company who nobody ever took seriously as the champion in the first place?
You people are fools!
So that big rub that Tessmacher got from beating Gale, that means a hell of a lot less now. And the new champion is fucking worthless. Not just because she's Madison Rayne, who has proven time and time again that she flatlines when you push her as a singles competitor, but also because she has no fresh feuds available. She's already feuded with every single knockout on the roster. At least the ones that probably aren't leaving soon. So aside from her fucking the referee to get preferential treatment, what can you do with her as the champion that's new and fresh at this point? Nothing.
Fail! You fail! How do you screw this up?
Tables match. Bully Ray versus Jeff Hardy versus James Storm versus Robbie E.
Clearly, one of these superstars is not like the others.
Robbie damn near botched the whole match by not getting the table out of the way in time. Nice one, dumbass. Also, the wrong person lost the match. Why are you having Jeff Hardy be the one to go through a table when you've got a guy who might as well have Jobber for Life tattooed across his forehead and Robbie fucking E? Especially when Hardy really needed to get his heat back after Impact. I mean, that's just idiotic. It's not like anyone gave a shit about Robbie in this match anyway. Just like Madison Rayne, the crowd just took a big dump every time he went on the offense. And outside of those two blunders, really, I didn't think this was that good. There was no real flow to it, and considering it had Storm, Hardy, and Bully Ray in it, it should have been way better. I mean, a lot of it was just variations on the table gets pulled out of the way spot. And I know that's the point of a tables match, but it didn't seem like there was a lot of creativity put into this one. Probably because it was more about the aces and eights showing up to incriminate Storm again. And yeah, we're still seeing the flaws in this. And frankly, I don't see why anyone would believe that James Storm is really the leader of the aces and eights. Why? Because they're being so obvious about making it look like he's the leader that him continuing to deny it makes no sense at all unless the whole thing is a setup. I'm hoping Bully Ray winning means he's signed to a new contract. If so, awesome. If not, I really felt Hardy should have won the match, but what can you do? Question. Why didn't anyone come out to attack the aces and eights when they showed up? They were just hanging out there at ringside unimpeded for a few minutes. There were no wrestlers to stop them, no security to arrest them, no nothing. Wasn't this the issue that Sting was supposed to be staying on top of as interim GM? Man, he has really done a piss-poor job of that so far. Hey, you know who would do a better job as interim GM? Joseph Park. Just saying. X Division title match, Kenny King versus Zema Ion. Really nice match. But here's the thing. It was very reminiscent of the Austin Aries X Division matches for the last year or so, in that Kenny King was pretty clearly on a level above his opponent. The difference is, this time, the opponent won the match. Don't look at me, Schleg Daddy. I didn't jinx it this time. I was very careful not to. Not that Ion was bad, he was just fine. I just thought Kenny King out-wrestled him despite losing the match. And yeah, I didn't really expect him to win because Ion Sorensen is obviously the long-term plan, but I was hoping the plan might change because if they're going to wait until after that feud is over to pull the trigger on Kenny King, they're just throwing money away. They need to push Kenny King and push him now. Still a really good match though, but the finish. Oh, the finish made me mad. Zema, you used the gory bomb again, you bastard. I thought I made myself very clear last time. Only Kaylee Ray can use that move, damn it. Why? Because Kaylee Ray is fucking awesome. That's the only reason I need. Now we're getting into the big ones. Styles versus Daniels versus Joe versus Angle. Ladder match. Now, if you ask me, these last two matches were what made the difference between this pay-per-view being good and being really good. I thought the ladder match was excellent. Now, there weren't really any insane spots, and I didn't really expect there to be, but I was kind of glad about that, honestly, because I was afraid Kurt Angle was going to kill himself just in the name of stealing the show again. So they kept the spots mostly basic, but they made up for it with some nice psychology, like with the faces ganging up on Daniels all at once at the beginning, and Joe and Kurt playing anything you can do, I can do better, just suplexing Daniels all over the ring. That was funny. AJ winning the match makes sense if he's still going to have a chance in the Bound for Glory series, and if Austin Aries is presumably the champion heading into Bound for Glory, like I expect he will be now, then AJ has got to be one of his more probable opponents. So I didn't have a problem with that. World title match, Austin Aries versus Bobby Roode. Now, regardless of how good this match was, and it was a terrific match, make no mistake about it, what made me happiest about this was just Aries retaining the title.
Yes!
I didn't even have a problem with all the business with the referees because we still got a clean finish and the right guy won, in my opinion. I mean, yes, they did invest a lot of time and effort previously in Roode versus Storm, but plans obviously changed, and to go back on them now would have been a big mistake. And they could still do Roode Storm some other way, but right now it was more important to keep Aries looking strong and solidify the new main eventer they've created. Plus, it makes the Bound for Glory series much more unpredictable, so I think that was definitely the right call. And generally, I thought Hardcore Justice was a really strong pay-per-view. The main issue I had, and TNA do not get a pass on this one, is that there was all this build-up to the Aces and Eights doing something big, and it didn't really amount to that much at all. But nitpicks aside, most of the matches were good to very good, and the final 3 matches made this a show worth your money, in my opinion. I'd say it's worth a replay if you missed it. So that's it for the pay-per-view. Stay tuned for the iMPACT review coming up next. Stick around. Okay, look, I had to work all weekend, and I was completely wiped out afterward. If you're pissed off about the video being so late, I'm sorry. This was the earliest I could make it. Anyway, our Fallout show began with Austin Aries, which is good. He should at least be starting the show if he's not going to get to end the show. He talks about still being the champ and proving to all the naysayers that he's not a fluke. And it was good that they did this because Aries is presumably going to be our world champion when Bound for Glory rolls around. Everyone on the show is talking like that's going to be the case now, so I'm assuming that's what we're getting in October. So they need to put him over as much as they can between now and then. Unfortunately, they got sidetracked pretty quickly here. Jeff Hardy comes out and talks about how he's going to win the Bound for Glory series and face Aries in October, but then Bully Ray comes out, the topic at hand turns to the Aces and Eights, and Aries kind of disappears from the segment for a minute. He interjected himself, thankfully, but then the Aces and Eights show up on the video screen with more mysterious teases. Again, it's pretty weird that Sting can't seem to find the Aces and Eights, but the camera crew can find them no problem. Why doesn't Sting just call the camera crew, ask them where they are, and then go there and fight the Aces and Eights there? Am I the only one bothered by this? Anyway, this was a fine segment and all, but wasn't it supposed to be about the champ? By the time it was over, it seemed like the world title, and Austin Aries for that matter, were the furthest things from everyone's minds. And it's not the first time this has happened either. There's an ugly trend being established here where, on the scale of importance on this show right now, it's Aces and Eights, Bound for Glory series, Austin Aries. And I don't like it. This was interesting. Magnus was facing Samoa Joe tonight in a Bound for Glory series match that I wish had been made a bigger deal out of since they are former tag team champions, and this was teased a while back in that initial battle royal that kicked off the tournament. Magnus cuts a really good promo about how he doesn't just know Joe the wrestler, but he knows Joe the man, and if you understand the man, you can beat the man. And there's a nice story being told in this match where they've got each other's moves scouted, and they keep countering everything the other guy is doing. Joe wins ultimately, and he kind of pats Magnus on the back afterward, which Magnus seemed to think was condescension, so he snaps and hits Joe with a chair. He had some strong words for Joe in the post-show too, and I'm like, could this be the start of a Magnus singles push finally? It's about time that happened.
Yes! 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 Yes!
The match was only like 3 minutes, but I was okay with it being so short because it's clearly going to be a feud now. Now, Joe's probably going to be doing BFG series stuff and No Surrender, but if something happens there, if Magnus maybe costs him the win, like I think he might, we could have our first Bound for Glory match right here. And if Joe isn't going to win the BFG series, I think that's the perfect way to go. It would be a great rub for Magnus. It's the biggest match you could put both guys in that would have a lot of build-up and still feel fresh at the same time. So that's great. I hope they do it. R.I.P. Joe Daddies. Then Madison Rayne came out. Ha-ha! She cuts a promo about how now that she's the champion again and she's fucking the guy who referees all the knockout matches, that she's just gonna rule this division forever. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but that was the gist of it. And shockingly, she was actually getting a little bit of heat from this promo. So I guess congratulations are in order, Madison. That's the closest you've gotten to actually being over in the last 4 years. Doesn't mean the storyline isn't bullshit, though. And I can't believe what I'm about to say, but thank God Brooke Hogan showed up. She came out to put a stop to this finally, and this was the first time that Brooke has had to really do any kind of angle outside a little backstage pre-tapes. She wasn't scintillating, but she didn't embarrass herself, I guess. She kind of did that later, but she was okay here. And she puts Madison in a rematch with Tessmacher and says that Earl Hebner will no longer referee the knockout matches. So finally, someone in management is actually addressing this issue. I don't know why they couldn't have done that several weeks ago when it first became an issue, but better late than never. So Brooke has a very special referee for this match, and they made it sound like it was someone we would recognize. So I was thinking debuting new star, former knockout with a grudge against Madison, maybe? Gail Kim tweeted that she thought she knew who it was and she wasn't happy about it. So all these names start going through my head. Roxy, Taylor Hendricks, Melina, Awesome Kong. As it happens, Brooke Hogan introduces Taryn Terrell. And then she trips and falls over. And when I was done laughing at that, my first thought was, who the crap is Taryn Terrell? A thought that seemed to be mirrored by most of the audience. The announcers were talking about her like she was a big deal. Model, actress, stunt woman, whatever. The name sounded familiar. I felt like I was supposed to know who she was, but I had to Google her to find out she was Tiffany in WWE. I wasn't watching ECW or SmackDown back then, so I didn't recognize her. I'm giving the match a thumbs up. Tessmacher is sick as a dog right now, and it didn't show at all, so A+ for effort. And thanks to a non-biased official, Tessmacher wins the title back from Madison.
You're welcome.
And now we see why they switched it in the first place, so they could get Taryn over with this angle. Okay, but couldn't they have just done that at the pay-per-view and not hot potatoed the title at all? They kind of put a black mark on Tessmacher's reign here, but big picture, Madison is not the champion anymore. Fine, good, I'll take it. As for Taryn Terrell, I'm not sure how to feel. I mean, I YouTubed a few of her matches, and I don't see what she brings to the table that any number of the current knockouts or talented women on the indies couldn't do better. I mean, they do need new knockouts, but come on! Athena, Courtney Rush, Veda Scott. I mean, get someone unique and interesting that could offer a little variety. I mean, you couldn't find anyone more dynamic than generic hot blonde number 72? Haven't we seen enough blondes by now? Or is she supposed to be a replacement Velvet Sky? And yeah, TNA, you're not fooling anyone as far as that goes. Angelina leaves, Velvet leaves, and a few weeks later, this chick shows up? If anyone really thinks that's a coincidence, I doubt it. But hey, new knockout. Wasn't one of the women I was hoping for, but it's something. I haven't really seen enough of her to assess her skills or her talent or anything, but she gets the benefit of the doubt for now. Now, something I didn't mention before is that at the end of that first segment, the Aces and Eights showed up to attack Brooke Hogan, but a bunch of babyfaces hit the ring and ran them off. Now, why they didn't do that at the pay-per-view, I couldn't tell you, but Sting challenges these guys to a match on Open Fight Night next week. So, once again, Sting is resorting to what apparently is the only plan he has, which is to call out the Aces and Eights and just hope that they show up. Sting, I don't mean to be a dick about this, but that plan didn't work the first time you tried it. What makes you think it's going to work now? I'm just saying. Oh, and remember this part for later, because this is going to come up again. Oh boy, if you thought this Claire Lynch thing couldn't get any stupider, you hadn't seen this yet. AJ Styles tries to make his match with Christopher Daniels tonight a little more interesting. See, if Daniels beats him, then he'll admit to being the father of Claire Lynch's bastard. But if AJ wins, then he gets a paternity test. So, not only has AJ not gotten a paternity test yet, but he'll only get one if he wins this match. Which, if he loses, he'll then admit to fathering a child that may or may not even be his. Yeah.
This is ridiculous, man, any way you look at it. Alright. You know what? Fuck it. I'll play along. Let's see where this goes. This was really weird. It's completely horrible, and yet I laugh at the mere mention of it. It's almost like a bad B-movie thing now, where it's kind of fun to watch just because of how awful it is. That's how you should approach this storyline. Don't take it seriously. Just sit back, relax, and MST3K the shit out of it. So AJ and Daniels had yet another match. AJ won again, and I confess I didn't really care. I don't like saying that, and I'm probably breaking the smart mark code here, but I just didn't. They never have a bad match, but it's like Cena Orton with these guys. No matter what they do together, the matchup no longer interests me because it's just been done so many damn times already. I don't care to see it anymore. What I really want is for these characters to evolve and move on from each other, but it doesn't look like that's ever going to happen. Bobby Roode cut a really strong promo about how being the world champion was everything to him and how he feels lost without the title, basically blaming everybody else for all his problems, and he leaves not knowing what the hell he's going to do now that he can't get a rematch against Austin Aries. A really good segment that put over the title nicely, makes you wonder what Roode's going to do now that he's cut off from the world title picture for the time being, and hopefully clears the table so Roode can resume his feud with James Storm soon. No complaints here. Our main event was Jeff Hardy versus Bully Ray, which was set up in the opening segment. It was a solid match. James Storm was at ringside in case the Aces and Eights showed up again because he's sick and tired of everyone accusing him of being their leader. Of course, he gets accidentally taken out during the match, and only then do the Aces and Eights show up to start some shit. Then he accidentally super kicks Hardy. Then the Aces and Eights applaud him.
and then they beat the crap out of him. Because they'd put so much effort into getting people to suspect James Storm that just when it's actually starting to work, they decide, for no particular reason, mind you, that they're tired of that now, so to hell with it. Apparently they decided they don't need a fall guy after all. How? Why? When? For what reason? These are things that haven't been explained yet. And I'm just going to assume that this will all make sense in hindsight. Right now, though, I don't know what the hell's going on. So we fade out with the Aces and Eights putting the boots to James Storm. And what does Sting do about this ruthless attack? Not a goddamn thing. Remember how Sting and a bunch of babyfaces ran these guys off earlier? That didn't happen this time. I guess all the faces were in the bathroom or something. You know, one could actually make a pretty good case for Sting being the leader of the Aces and Eights. He says he wants to get rid of them, and he challenges them when they're not there, but he only attacks them when they can easily escape, and every time he could quite easily get the jump on them, he doesn't do shit. Sting is looking kind of suspicious right now, if you ask me. Could he be behind the Aces and Eights? Who knows? Anyone but Jarrett. Anyone but Jarrett. Anyone but Jarrett. Good pay-per-view, good impact. A few inconsistencies, yeah, some things I don't agree with, but the good far outweighs the bad right now. Come back for Open Fight Night on Thursday, plus the next Gut Check, with a contestant who told us his whole life story in a video this week, but somehow forgot to tell us his name. See you then.